Hello, you beautiful human. This is the 187 Said podcast, and I'm 187. The 187 Said podcast is a podcast for men, those who identify as men, and those that care for them. I'm producing this podcast to normalise the conversation around many of the topics that have an impact on men. If you're finding the episodes helpful, then feel free to support me by sharing the podcast, talking about the subject, or even getting in contact with me and letting me know what subjects I should cover. But also, if you have a lived experience that you think is important to talk about, or something you'd like to share, all of my contact details are in the show notes. Hello, I'm 187, and this is the 187 Said podcast. But then I've said that already. A couple of things I want to bring to your attention quickly before we move into the episode. Firstly, apologies for this episode being 8 days late, I think it is. 8 days late in total. So apologies for that. Reasons are I had to reset the equipment. 2, I don't really know what I'm doing, and I wanted to make sure that I'm able to record something that is of worthy quality for your ears. So I am learning my craft, but we will get to a point where I'm happy with the sound quality that I'm putting out. Any suggestions, feel free to get in touch. Secondly, just to let you know, the house is live because it's school half term. There's going to be noise because somebody's watching Britain's Got Talent again. So please bear with me if there's any kind of background noise, but I'm hoping that it won't spoil your enjoyment. Today's episode is about addiction. Well, actually, it's really about a new book that's out this month by Stewart Lee. Not Stewart Lee, the comedian, but the writer who has a lived experience of addiction. The book's called Me and My Addiction, and it's available from Amazon, and there'll be a link in the show notes. So before I share this episode, I'd like to give you some information that, what I hope will give you an objective view when you listen to the interview that will lead you to buy the book, because I feel it's important for you to have an understanding where somebody who is struggling from addiction is coming from. Let me start by giving you a bit of the research that I've kind of discovered. So the health survey for England in 2018 found that when they spoke to men, about 59% of them reported that they were drinking alcohol within the last 7 days. And 27% of those people felt that their drinking was either hazardous or harmful. So, they were worried about the level that they drink. And when we bear this in mind, in England, in 2019, there were 4,866 deaths related to alcohol, of which 3,325 were directly attributed to alcohol misuse. Now, alcohol addiction, we may not appreciate, but it can contribute to the development of mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and psychosis. And these individuals are more likely to experience psychotic disorders, or more so than anybody else in the general population of this country. So therefore, they're more likely to have poor mental health outcomes, such as increased stays in hospitals or being sectioned and so on. And alongside all of this, an increased risk of suicide ideation and suicide attempts. Alcohol-related suicides represent around 20% of all suicides, and they're more likely to occur for men than women. And for men, risky drinking is associated with increased risk of alcohol poisoning or liver disease. So this is the effects on the individual and their families. The financial costs to the country is enormous. Public Health England estimate that the total cost of alcohol-related harm in England, it was estimated to be around £21 billion a year, and about 3.5 billion of that cost was borne by the NHS. In addition to that, there are also significant economic costs from low productivity, people not returning to work, and of course, there'll be alcohol-related crimes, drink driving, robbery, theft, violent offences. the list goes on. Because it's such a big health issue, why are we doing this to ourselves? So there could be the pressure to drink, and it can be a way to self-medicate away stress and depression brought on by overwhelming issues at work or within our personal lives and relationships. Because of that, we're probably more likely to drink to excess. Poverty and deprivation have a role to play. What I don't want you to do is to go away and think, well, only poor people become alcoholics, and they live in particular areas of the country, so this is why they are drinking a lot. Alcoholics or people who drink too much are not the sort of, are not walking around the streets in a vest, jogging bottoms, and tattoos with a six-pack under their arm, screaming and shouting and drinking on the streets. We're talking about anyone, really. But where there is deprivation, high levels of poverty, they're more likely to drink excessively because of fewer opportunities to do anything different, less social outlets. A family history of addiction can also be an issue. So those men who have experienced childhood trauma, neglect, abuse, they are more likely to develop alcohol addiction. Hopefully, just that little bit of information will give you an idea of a bit of understanding about how somebody is in this situation. What I'd like to do now is to hand you over or fade in the interview with Stewart Lee, where he talks about his book, Me and My Addiction. So welcome everyone. I have with me Stewart Lee, author and all-round amazing individual, and we'll find out why. So Stewart, welcome.
Thanks very much for inviting me onto your show.
Yeah, no worries. So I wanted to start off with where you are now. Officially, you are now an author.
Well, yeah. I mean, you could say officially I'm an author. The book's not quite published yet, so if they're ready to go, I've just got to push the button. So yeah, I guess I am. Yeah.
Is it a hard thing? Because even just you saying it, I mean, you've written a book, and it's
I do, like, I have to pinch myself if I'm honest, because like I was saying this to people at work, right? Like I've always shied away from the thought of going to university for the simple reason that when people say they've written like an essay that's 10,000 words, I always look at that and think I couldn't write something that long. And then I go and write a book that's like 45,000 words. And the feedback I've had on it so far has been out of this world. So to think that I'm someone who didn't really do much in education, and then I've come through to write something that people are saying is really good. Yeah, it's calling myself. I haven't changed my online statuses to say I'm an author yet, but I think I'm going to have to soon.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to change it not only just from author, but to published author. So when you press that button, yeah. So that's
maybe even number one best-selling author.
Yeah. Let's go for it. Yeah. But no, I mean, I've read the book and it's a great piece of work. What I'd like for you to kind of describe to the listeners, what inspired, what made you write this book?
So like, obviously, I've people don't know. I mean, I'm coming up to 10 years of sobriety now, so I've done a lot of talking to people who are in addiction or working around the subject, about my experiences and life stories and my take on addiction. And people have always said to me, "Oh, you've got a powerful story. You should write a book." And like I said earlier, I've never thought I could put together something, that big. And I've always kind of shied away from it. And last year, just by chance, I bumped into a lady who's an author coach at a dancing event, and I just thought, I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
So I thought that meeting her was like no accident, and we started talking about me writing a book, and then it just kind of escalated from there. So around about August last year, I just decided, I have got a powerful story. People do need to hear it. but not so much about me for my story. I want to help. I want people to relate to it, to educate them.
Yeah.
That's what motivated me more. It's not about me and what I've done and where I am now, where I've come from. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is for people to relate to it, to try and help people that aren't addicts, to help them also get a better understanding of the illness.
Yeah. And yeah, obviously we're holding the title. I haven't mentioned the title. Tell me what the actual title of the book is.
Oh yeah, yeah. So the book is Me and My Addiction. So it's basically my you. I try and describe it as I'm using my life stories to give people a real understanding of what addiction is, why we think how we think, why we behave the way we behave,
Mm.
why we do the things we do. Because people who aren't addicts maybe don't understand why we do the things we do.
Yeah, and I must admit, having read it, and that's a privilege to read it, that what you've done is you've given. It's I think that when people show a harsh reality of any kind of situation, they talk about it being gritty and kind of really like down to the mark, but you literally are, it's an you are functional to a certain degree, just living life, but of course the wake of destruction of relationships and just yourself, you as a person was up and down, and then that kind of it seems to be that just that unpredictability to yourself of what's going to happen next, of living,
Yeah,
that kind of thing. And people don't seem to realize that that is what it is for many more addicts.
it's a clever illness because from the outside looking in, you can look to be functioning like you say, like just like a normal person, day by day, like most people are. We're able to hide it very well, but like internally, it's different. Like that's what the realization came for me eventually when internally it took me a long time to realize what I was doing to myself, but once I'd realized it, then I could really do something about it. But yeah, it's a very, very clever illness where there's so many people that um, I don't know what the statistics are, but I expect there's a lot of people who probably drink to excess or use drugs in an addictive way, but don't even realize it.
Mm. Yeah, and that's the thing that people need to realize. And also, I think one of the things you pointed out in the book is that it's not necessarily about um, cocaine and alcohol or smoking weed or anything like that. It's not just that. It's the addictive nature to anything that we do to excess that have an
Yeah,
impact on our social life, our life, so to speak, not just physically, but also our relationships, our work, our relationship with ourselves, and how we view other people. So that's for me was something that kind of crept in, and it's almost like not a, it's not gritty at all. It's I don't know. It's kind of horrifically gentle, to be honest. It really is, because it's almost like you are literally, I mean, you're not an old man, but it is literally somebody sitting down at a bus stop just telling you, oh well, you think this is what it's like, my friend. You know,
I've not had it described like that before, but yeah, I
yeah,
like that.
yeah, it really is. It is really good. So you were infused because of what your experience was, and somebody said you should write a book. But what is the bit that there must be something in your brain that kind of switched off that negativity where you said, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that." Where you just went, you pressed the button and
Um,
said, "I'm going to do it."
I think like yeah, the thing in the brain that tells you can't do something, that's always there. It's still there. It's there now. I'm
Mm.
still sat here thinking, how can I talk to you about my book? But I should be able to because it's my book. But my
Yeah.
brain's telling me I can't. But one of the things I've tried to do in my recovery is I've tried to push myself to get outside my comfort zone and do things that I'm scared of doing.
Mm.
So boxing. I started boxing. I thought I'd train, have one fight, and get my ass handed to me, and then give up. But I won the first fight and went on to have 12 semi-pro fights. And then I got into dancing instead because that scared me, and that still scares me. I compete with my girlfriend, but it's something I enjoy doing, but it scares me. And all through the writing process, after I met the lady who's the author coach, I decided, right, I'm going to do it. But all the way through the process of writing it, I'm reading things back, thinking, oh, that sounds stupid. No one's going to like that. No one's going to want to read this. And it's been a scary process the whole way through because I'm still at that. I still genuinely think it's gonna when I release it, when I hit that publish button and it's available, oh, no one's going to buy it. It's going to flop. That's how my brain works, and it doesn't stop.
Yeah. And do you think that that's almost like not a cornerstone, or that's part of the reason why? And you talked a bit about the addictive nature, but that self-doubt, that imposter syndrome, which I think you mentioned in the book, is been current throughout the whole of your journey, really.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, like it's not something that's just within people who would class themselves as addicts or alcoholics. I think like imposter syndrome is a very real thing for a lot of people, but people have different ways of coping with it. My go-to was drink or drugs. That instantly gave me the confidence to do anything I wanted to do, or anything I thought I could do. The majority of the time, I ended up drinking too much and then couldn't do what I was intending to do anyway. But so like I say with addiction, I think everyone's on the addiction scale somewhere, just with different intensities, and it's the same with things like the imposter syndrome. Everyone, it's a real feeling that everyone must have, but maybe not as intense for some people. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and that's really clear. I think again, as I say, I wax lyrical about this. The fact is, your book pretty much lays it out so people can really not just academically understand what it is, but they can actually feel. There's an elements where you can look at yourself as the reader and go, actually, I'm a bit like this about that kind of thing, because I think because you've been so reflective as well in the book, it's clear that you've been very not down on yourself, but really digging deep and haven't hold. It must have been quite not necessarily a painful book, uncomfortable write. For you to write it, it must have been uncomfortable at a certain point.
There's definitely stuff in there that like it's stuff that I'm not proud of, and it's hard for me to talk about and put it in a book, but it's relevant to the story. And I think like I've managed to over the years, I've become through the years of recovery, it's allowed me to kind of look back on my life and reflect on things and become more self-aware on the things I did and why I did it. And although it's painful, I try not to beat myself up too hard about it, because the reason I called it Me and My Addiction is I try and separate the two things. I'm me. My addiction is a separate part of me that if I let it run wild, it can change me as a person to something different. So that's why I look at it as, yes, I did these things, not proud of them, but I can forgive myself because it wasn't the real me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and one of the things that I would normally do is sort of go back to the beginning, like where did this this addictive nature come? Addictive nature come, and how did it start, or what stage? But I kind of, because I think that's a part of the book that I think people really need to kind of immerse themselves in. So I don't necessarily want to talk too much about that, if that's okay, because that was yesterday. Fine. But I think your road to recovery, I think that's going to be quite an important thing. And what stage for you did you decide, actually, I need to do something about this?
A lot of the time it was, I most of the time when I was in active addiction, I didn't really see what I was doing was a problem. And a lot of the times it was always someone else would say things to me like, oh, you're a nice guy when you haven't had a drink, or or a girlfriend is fed up of the constant merry-go-round of what person's going to be coming home today and stuff like that. So I think like I first found recovery when a girlfriend said you need to go and get sober, and I gave it a go and it didn't work because I wasn't doing it for me. But it kind of planted the seed. And I don't know. I don't know what happened. Just like one day after the last bender, I just woke up as normal, feeling rough, not being able to keep any fluids down, being sick all morning. And I don't know what was different that day. I just looked at myself in the mirror and thought, I can't do it anymore. And I think, like, I've said that many times before when I was in the madness of it. Oh, I've had enough now. I'm going to stop. And I truly meant it, but it never worked. But I don't know. I think like near the end of my drinking, it just got painful. It became difficult. Like it was lies would fall out of my mouth when the truth would sometimes be easier, and I wouldn't even know why I've just told a lie. And then I'd have to lie to cover up that lie, and then hide in the drinking, and it just became hard work, to be honest. And I think anyone who's in that like kind of that cycle would understand what I mean when I say that. When it becomes difficult. And yeah, just I don't know what was different that day, but that day I just said I can't do this anymore. And as rock bottoms go, it wasn't even that like drastic compared to some of the stuff that that you've read in the book. But yeah, I don't know why that one was different, but that was the start of the journey, man.
Yeah, that's good. And how much of all of that you described is about you doing it for yourself this time?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, through recovery, I've met lots of people who, like, in going into recovery groups and stuff for different various reasons, and I can almost guarantee 99% of the time, if someone's in there doing it for somebody else, it's not going to work. The only time anyone can truly make any change to their nature is when they really, really want to do it for themselves. And I don't mean that just with addiction. That's with anything. You've got to be willing to put in the effort and change if you're ever going to change. It's not gonna happen for someone else's benefit.
Yeah. And you described that, from the last bender, that's when you just looked at yourself and thought, right, okay, this is, I don't want to be doing this anymore. So that's almost, you're pressing the button on that. So how difficult was it to get to where you are now? What's been your most uncomfortable moments
I mean, like if I'm honest, like it's been initially like because the obsession to drink when you're an alcoholic, the obsession to drink is so strong. Like you just forget what you wake up full of remorse and you go, I'm never doing that again. And then 2 or 3 days later, or however long it is, the thought of having a drink will come in, and you'll just completely forget the drama you've caused before. It'll be like it never happened in your mind. So initially, staying sober when that's going on is very, very hard. And over the years of recovery, there's been some really hard things I've had to go through: relationship breakdowns, separating from the mother of my children, not being full-time dad in their lives has been very, very tough. But the hardest time for me has been this year, really, because I started this year full of hope with all these, aspirations of the book and, the way I was going in my life. And quite early in January, my mum passed away suddenly, unexpectedly. So I had that to deal with. I had to find a new job by the end of March, and also had to, I got served notice on my flat that I had to move out by the end of March. So in the first 3 months of the year, I've got like three of the most stressful things you can go through: a bereavement, having to find a new job, and having to move house, all while getting a book published. So it's been a bit of a stressful few months this year, but I've got through it. I haven't, the thought of having a drink hasn't crossed my mind. I haven't gone backwards. I just kept plowing forward. It's been tough, but it's a testament to the recovery. Really, I've always said to people, when you're in addiction, you're on a scale that's always going down. You have moments where you think you've got a bit of control, but that's always followed by worse relapse. And it's always steadily going downwards. Now, in recovery, as long as you stay sober, it's the other way. You have ups and downs. There's things that go wrong, and you can feel like you feel like your world's ending again. But from my experience, I've found that the longer you stay sober, everything's always going on an upward trajectory.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that, and that kind of leads us nicely to look at the obviously the traumatic beginning to this year, but what has been the successes for you that you've noticed that have been, that you've been gifted, I suppose, through recovery.
The most important thing for me that about recovery is the relationships with my family. Especially when I talk about my mum, because obviously when I was drinking, I wasn't a very nice person. I fell out with my mum quite a lot. I would, blame her for a lot of my own troubles, cause arguments with her for no reason. I wasn't a very nice son to her. But having the years of recovery under my belt, I've got a good relationship with all my family now. And, when my mum passed away, I was at peace, knowing that, for the last few years of her life, I was back being the son that she deserved to have. I've made amends to her for all the wrongs that I'd done, and we had a good relationship at the end. So that's I can't imagine what I would feel like if I hadn't got sober and if I hadn't had a good relationship with my mum at the end. That would have been devastating for me, and her. But yeah, having the relationship, not just my mum, but all my family. I've got a better relationship with my dad now, and my sisters, and niece and nephews. That stuff. Money can't buy that. You can get well, you can get sober, and you can have a better life with material things. But none of that matters. Material stuff comes and goes.
Yeah. So your family is your biggest I suppose reigniting your relationship with your family in the way that you want to be seen by your family is you're saying is your biggest gift at the moment.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I wasn't a very good father. I've got, I know I don't look old enough, but I've got a son who's 20 years old, and he, the first sort of 5 years of his life, I was pretty non-existent. I was there physically, but mentally and emotionally, I was not there. And then for the 5 years after that, between like 5 and 10, I was still drinking. So kind of there, but not, if you know what I mean. But the last 10 years, I can certainly say, I'm a better role model to all my children. I've got 3 children all together now. And just knowing that I'm not behaving the way I used to behave when I've got kids that they're sweet. Kids are supposed to look up to their parents, and and knowing that I can do that now and have my kids, be a better role model to my children and have a good relationship with them, and all my family. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. And for you, I mean, is it all right for me to ask you, what's your relationship like with your eldest? You said he's 20 now. What's
We've gone through ups and downs. He came to live with me for a little bit, and trying to. I was trying to teach the boy a little bit about being a grown up and how tough it is to be an adult. He was 18 when he was living with me, and he didn't really have a clear goal of where he wanted to get to. And I was trying to, I think I was kind of scared that he was going to go the same route I went, and I was just trying to give him a bit of, not to diagnose him and say you're the same as me, but just to kind of give him a bit of guidance into getting a few things right that I know I got wrong. He didn't like that very much. We fell out. We didn't speak for a little while, but we've got back in touch again now, and he's doing well. He's starting to realise now that what I was doing was just trying to teach him, because he's just moved into his own flat now, so he's realising how hard it is to actually be an adult and pay bills and.
Yeah. This is when adulting. This is it.
Yeah.
And I think you're able to talk about the past, self-reflect, and pass that on. And I think that's, people who are reading the book will hopefully get some realization in the same way your son has about, this is bloody hard, man. It's difficult, but you have to look at yourself. And I think it seems to me, correct me if I'm right or wrong, or correct me if I'm wrong, that you're realizing that you're worth something at the end of this. At the end of all of this, you've gone, actually, I'm better than this, than how you view yourself, I suppose.
Definitely. Like I said, I still have to pinch myself all the time to kind of get the realization that, what you're saying is right. But yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, people that read, I want people to realize that addiction is a lot more common than you realize. Like you said, people have to look in the mirror, and it's not to say that people that are behaving in an addictive way is always bad, because it's not. I did an interview with someone else on a radio station, and he'd read the book as well, and the way he described to me, he said that he read the book, and even though he doesn't consider himself to have any problem with alcohol, the book opened up his mind into being able to look at his behavior in other areas of his life and start to really question his motives for why he does certain things that he does. And he said, that's coming from someone who doesn't class themselves as an alcoholic or an addict, but the book still gave them an insight into challenging their behavior.
Yeah. It's perfect. Yeah, I can 100%. I can see that. And I one of the episodes I did, I think it's out. I think it came out yesterday, called "Coming Out," and the gentleman that I speak to from the US, he was talking about him coming out as a gay man and being a dad, and but he was previously, he's a father, was married and then came out, and one of the things that he talks about quite a lot, and hopefully I'm not doing any spoilers, people have listened to the episodes and they're doing it in order, that sort of thing, but one of the things that you point out, that we're all in this closet, and this closet is where, before we come out, we're trying to create this image of ourselves to other people. We're trying to, we're living our lives on the expectations of others, that there are no problems, we can solve everything, I'm great at this, I'm either 100% heterosexual, or I'm quite rich, but then I'm living off credit cards. All of these things, it's all smoke and mirrors. And at some point, you just have to open the door and just go, right, let's stop the show business now. I'm tired. I've got to stop it.
But that's not getting any easier, is it? Because that's the world we live in these days. Where everyone's posting up their best life on social media, only highlighting the good stuff that they're doing, and the reality is you're putting that stuff on there, but you're miserable.
Yeah.
but acting like it because everyone's comparing themselves to what they see other people doing. Even it's like it's a weird game that everyone's playing, because we all know that what people are putting on is false, but yet we still compare our lives to what we know is false that we're seeing, and try and outdo that other person's reality that isn't a reality.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's almost, we get angry if people set ourselves up to fail, but we pretty much are doing this ourselves sometimes. We're setting ourselves up to fail, choosing these goals. I want to have a six pack. Genetically, you don't need a six pack. I need to be a bit taller. It's not going to happen, my friend.
Stretch yourself out on some like medieval torture device.
Yeah, that's it. That's just it. And and I want to. I don't know. I want to get beach ready. And you go, yeah, but what beach in particular? Really? I mean?
It's the same. It's like you get the same cycle every year, don't you? It's people doing the same every year. Like, oh, it's March. I'm going to get my summer body ready.
Yeah.
And then and it's the same as the year before. It doesn't get any better.
No, that's just it. I think at some point, at some point, yeah, we've got to stop kidding ourselves and to say that we're enough.
Yeah.
Not be afraid to just be enough. That's basically it.
I think like it's hard because I think we're from a young age we're spoon fed into believing that all these things matter. Like consumerism at its finest, constantly. I'm a nightmare for it. I've got so many different pairs of trainers that I don't need, but I just like them. But all the time we're shown things on the TV that we don't even need it, but we go and buy it. It's crazy. The things that make us like behave more addictive on stuff. Social media, constantly scrolling through, looking for things that we don't need. A bit of a dopamine hit, seeing what someone's up to.
Yeah. And you point about you mentioned that slightly in the book as well about this, this dopamine, this hit that we need to have, what we're kind of driving for, I suppose. And I'm studying to be a counsellor, and one of the things that we're kind of looking at this Freud, who's obsessed with this thing called drive. In the same way, if you walk around with treats in your hand and a dog knows you've got treats, you can pretty much get that dog to walk around and do whatever you want him to do and get on Britain's Got Talent or something. You know what I mean? That's kind of stuff. But and we can do that with people, and we do it with social media, and we do it with ads, and we do it with products, and we do it. It's always on somebody's deficit. You don't have this, I've got it. If you follow me, I'll let you have it. And I suppose it taps into what you were talking about, that addictive nature that we have. We're on this spectrum that we need to look at ourselves honestly.
Yeah. I truly believe everyone's on like the addictive spectrum somewhere, just different levels of it. I mean, I've come to realize that I'm an addict, and I'm always going to be an addict. It's not going to change, and I just need to, like I was saying, I've got a thing about trainers, right? And it's crazy because I know exactly what happens. This is exactly the same cycle every time. I'll flick through the website, I'll see the pair of trainers that I like, and I'll think, oh, they're pretty nice, and I'll justify a reason why I can afford to buy them or need them, and I'll buy them, and then I've got that. I'm getting that dopamine, then the feeling of like, oh, this new pair of trainers is coming. They're on their way, and I get excited when I get the notification from the delivery company, and I get excited on the day that they're going to arrive. And then when they arrive, they're just another pair of trainers, and that feeling's gone. But then I do it again, and I do it again, and I don't give myself too much of a hard time over it because I'm not spending my rent money. My bills are paid. I'm only spending money that I can afford to spend, and I can be addicted to trainers because I'm not hurting nobody else. When I was drinking and using drugs, I was hurting a lot of other people with my behaviour, but I'm not doing that now, so it's not as bad. but we are in a society where there's so much that you can get addicted to and behave that way, and there's no escape from it. Um,
And some of the things
you,
sorry.
you like you can't live off. You know, I've often thought about, you know, just living off grid, getting out and like living in building a house in the middle of nowhere, but you just, like, this day and age, you just can't get away from the system, can you? We're trapped in this merry-go-round of consumerism.
Yeah, I was speaking to a friend of mine who helped me build my website many years ago for another website for a business I was running, and he went off grid and he was working completely off grid, what we would term as off grid, in a van, just driving around Europe, but he was building websites for people, and he said it's impossible to come off grid because the moment you need something, you know you're going to go straight on Amazon.
Yeah.
And you're going to have it delivered to somewhere, so you know you have to go to that address to get the, you know, pick up that parcel. And when you go to pick up that parcel, it's just definitely going to be next to a supermarket or a shop, and then you're going to go, oh, I'll just pop in there, and then you're engulfed in it, even if it's just for a day. You're still topping up that thing,
Yeah.
thing where somebody's got a chance to say, you know, you haven't got this, you need to have this.
Yeah, but I mean, that's because we're in this world now where everything's an instant fix, isn't it? You know, everyone's got a little computer in their pocket that you can literally, through your phone, you can get anything you want these days, can't you? And most of the time, it's instant. If you want some food, you can go on an app and get it delivered within an hour. If you need something, like you say, you go on Amazon, and it's delivered the next day.
Yeah, it's all very fast moving. So for
If you're
you,
feeling lonely, you can go on a dating site and get a date the same day.
yeah, and it is very fast paced. So for you, you know, you've gone through recovery. You're going through recovery, because like you're saying, you always, every day is a day. But what's your days look like now? Is there anything in particular you kind of have to do to keep yourself at this level of emotional, mental fitness to be able to cope with the rigors?
Yeah, I mean, I try and live by just some kind of spiritual principles, really, of just trying to be honest with myself and everybody else, not be horrible to anyone else, try and do nice things for other people, which isn't, a lot of the time, it's against the grain. Like, I've explained this to my sisters. I'll say, like, I spent the best part of 20 years teaching my brain to live a certain way when I was in active addiction, and it was all about what's in it for me, what can I get for myself, how can I manipulate people, places, and things to get what I need. And then when you're into recovery, trying to live your life the completely opposite way of being nice to people, being honest and respectful, it's against the grain. It's not what I'm used to. But my body and my brain thinks, what are you doing? And I'm only 10 years into that. So I'm still in a negative equity. I've still got it's still an effort, you know, to not be out for myself. I try and meditate as often as I can. I find that a good way of keeping myself spiritually grounded. And my days are I live a pretty 9 to 5 life now, which 10 years ago I would have looked at you and said, I wouldn't want that kind of life. That's boring. But I'm happy with it now. It's simple. I've got a nice home. I've got a beautiful girlfriend. I've got kids that look up to me. I go to work. I come home. You know, I'll be a good partner, good role model to her children, and a good role model to mine. And I do the family stuff. You know, be a family man. And occasionally I'll make some time to write a book.
yeah. So it's almost like it's overturning all that talk we were talking about. You know, we were waxing lyrical about the whole social media thing and how we're, you know, the consumerism and stuff like that. But you're painting the picture of the simple life is your rich life, so to speak. You've got all the things, the trappings of family and stability that was not necessarily there beforehand.
Yeah, when you're in addiction, you live in this kind of reckless life, of like, it's almost like there's like a danger aspect of it, and and you think it's exciting, and you think it's going to fulfill you, but it really doesn't. And I've learned now that the basic, we don't need a lot to be happy, you know, and most of the happiness comes from within. It's nothing to do with what you're doing outside, drinking, smoking, doing drugs, risky stuff, anything like that. It comes from within. You know, the serenity that I've got these days of knowing that I'm living a decent, honest life, and having what I call the mundane 9 to 5 life. It's simple, you know, but I've still got things that I enjoy. Me and my partner, we go out dancing. We met at a dance lesson. We compete together. That's another thing that scares me. You know, it's pushing me out of my comfort zone. So yeah, we have things that we go and do that we enjoy, but just the normal day-to-day life is beautiful.
Yeah, and it seems that that's given you the time and space to do things that, like you say, challenge yourself. You did went from boxing and now to dancing, and just like you were saying, probably just as scared doing the dancing or the competition as well, which you did recently. You had a competition recently.
We competed together last year, and we're competing again together this year in July. So yeah, but our goal is just to do better than we did last year. So we're not competing with anybody else, really. We're just competing with ourselves. You know, we just want to do better than we did the previous time.
Yeah, that's amazing. What area of dance are you competing in?
It's it's called Southwest Ciroc Championships, but Ciroc it's very similar to a style called modern jive. So it's like your old school jive. So it's partner dancing, lots of twisting and turning, but it's kind of slowed down a little bit, so you can dance to more modern music.
Okay, so probably I would have seen some of that on Strictly Come Dancing, because I've watched that, which makes me an expert, doesn't it? So I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah.
I don't think there's. I mean, they've got. I think they've got old school like rock and roll jive on there. I think, but yeah, I don't really watch it because it's not. It's a bit commercialized for me. Yeah. It's more about. It's not so much about the dancing. It's more about what celebrities are on it and the scandals. There's always some sort of scandal when that program's on, isn't there?
But for you, the dancer gives you not only time that you spend with your partner, and it's something you're both together growing through, but there must be other things you get from it as well, from doing something like that.
Oh, I mean, like dancing's good for the soul, man. It's such a good feeling when you come off the dance floor and you've had a decent dance. You know, listen to some good music. Yeah, it's just such good fun. It's one of the things that I got into because I'd always believed I couldn't. You know, because if I was ever, the only time I'd ever dance is if I had a drink. So I was so self-conscious of what I look like. That was one of my things. Like I'd start drinking to give me confidence to do things like go and dance in a nightclub or chat up the ladies and stuff like that. And then I would drink. Then I couldn't stop drinking, and then I would. By the time I'd got to the point where I was ready to have the confidence to go and speak to a girl or go and have a dance on a dance floor, I'd go over the edge and I'd have had too much. So the window of opportunity was always like really, really small when I would be able to go and do that. So yeah, I was always petrified of dancing. So that's why I started going to lessons, because I thought, I've always had this kind of idea that it'd be so cool to like be at a wedding or somewhere like that, and then just go walk up to a girl and just start dancing properly, and have everyone watching you and thinking it looks amazing. So I thought I better go and do some lessons, and it terrified me, absolutely terrified me. It still does now. Like I'm still nervous when I'm even dancing with my partner, and we dance really well together.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's almost like you. It's like a list of things that terrify you. Go, oh, do you know what? I'll have a go.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that like the reason I do it, I think, is one. I think sitting in your comfort zone can be too safe for people. Doesn't really teach you anything about yourself if you live a comfortable life. And I spent so many years talking about, talking a good game. I reckon I'd be good at this. I reckon I could do this, and I would never do it because I wouldn't find the time or the balls to have a go at it. I talked about boxing when I was drinking. I used to think I could fight when I couldn't, and I talk about doing this stuff, but never really actually give it a go. And that's why now I'm trying to push myself to give things a go. Writing a book is one of those things. I'm scared. I'm scared to say it because if I say it, then I might actually have to do it. But I've always thought about properly having to go at singing because I've never tried proper singing. Like I'll drive along in my car and I'll put the radio up and I'll sing along to the tunes in my car when I'm on my own. But I don't know if it sounds any good or not. I've never actually like recorded it and listened back. So I don't know if I can sing or not. I probably can't, but I've always wanted to have a go. So that's probably the next thing that I might have to have a go at.
Yeah, but then you probably couldn't write a book. You have. It's one of those, and that's yeah. I mean, it's brilliant because there are so many things, opportunities that you've created for yourself. You've done it, and you look back and go, oh, I've done it, and you're finding another thing and another thing. It gives hopefully somebody listening to this and then will read your book and then just see actually it's not the boy who can't, it's the boy who can.
Or at least give it a go.
Yeah, could even. Yeah, that's just it. And I think that's what I'm hoping that people take away from the book. So which leads me nicely onto asking you, so when and how will people be able to purchase it?
So the book is available on Amazon as a paperback copy or as a Kindle edition, and I've also released it out onto Apple as well. So if you're an Apple hound like I am, you can get it on the Apple bookstore as an ebook on that one.
Excellent. So you can read it electronically or get a physical copy. Yeah, that's brilliant. And what date have you got? A date at the moment?
I mean, I think by the time this goes out, it'll be ready. It'll be done, man.
Yeah. So this will go out. Where are we now? It's the beginning of May. We'll be going out. So this episode will go out middle of May.
Yeah, it'll be available now.
Yeah, available now. All right then. Well, what I will do then is I'll keep my eyes open and make sure that that I make some noise, in and around it, and then put a link down so that people can buy the book in the show notes.
I'll send it over.
Yeah, and what I'd like you to do, if possible, is I'll supply the notes for the link to the books. Are there any helpful links or links to you if you've got a website or anything like that you want people to know about?
There'll be links in the back of the book, but by the time this goes out, I'll also have a website, which is Stewart Lee, other.A. And all my contact details are on there as well.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So the book is Me and My Addiction by Stewart Lee. If you search for a book by Stewart Lee, you'll find loads. There's a comedian that's got exactly the same name as me.
It's my favourite comedians, actually.
I went and saw him. He's one of my favourites. I went and saw him a few weeks ago. And after his show, he does a little meet and greet where you can buy a book, and he signs it for you. And he said, "Oh, what name do you want in it?" And I said, "Well, I'm Stewart Lee." And he was like, "Oh, well, spelt with a U." And I said, "No, spelt the same as yours." And we had a bit of a laugh and a joke about having the same name. And I said, well, I've just written a book myself, actually. I said, and I need a website, but I can't have stewartlee.co.uk because you've got it. And then he joked about being inconvenienced. He said, I'm so sorry for being inconvenienced to you. And then he said, what's the book about? So I told him it's about my journey through addiction to try and educate people. And he said, oh, that's wonderful. He said, when it comes out, drop me an email and I'll put it on my website and tell people that I didn't write it.
Brilliant. Yeah. Nice one. Yeah.
No. So you will find a lot of books by another Stewart Lee, but just keep searching because mine will be there.
Yeah, perfect. And even if you can't find it, you'll find it on his website as well. Perfect.
Hopefully.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much for taking the time out to talk about the book. And I'm glad we haven't done any spoilers, so people can go ahead and purchase it.
That's great. Thanks for having me, man.
Okay, so undoubtedly you found Stewart's interview inspiring enough to buy a copy of Me and My Addiction. Once you've read it, leave it lying around, perhaps for someone you care about to find it and maybe start to read it. I've added helpful links in the show notes, so feel free to use those. And I think it's important for me to show my workings. So soon there'll be a download of a copy of the mini research that I've shared at the start. So feel free to download that. It will take me probably about a week for it to be on board. So probably by the end of May 2023, it should be up for you to download. If you've got anything you want to share with us, if you have any comments at all, use the WhatsApp line. Send me a message. Lots of people do. Send me a voice note and let's talk. And remember, you are important. Thank you for listening to this episode. And wherever you listen to this podcast, please subscribe, like, or leave a comment.